I'm looking at problem number 7 from synthetic division number 2, and this is Unit 5, Lesson 5. And so I have listed all the possible rational roots, and I put them into 2 categories, knowing that I didn't have a calculator at home. So I put all the integers into one side, and I put all the rational roots here. Now these are rational too, because they can be written as a fraction. 1/1, 2/1, right? 3/1. But I put all the integers one side, and then I put the ones that would be harder to work with on the right-hand side. And now here's the bad news. I went through before starting this, and I tested every single one of these, and none of them worked. So now I'm going to start with trying 1/2 and -1/2. If that doesn't work, I'll try 3/2 and -3/2, and I know I'm going after 4 roots. Let's see what we can do here. So I'm going to start by testing 1/2. D mama, drop down first. 1/2 of 6 is 3. Combined to equal -14. 1/2 of 14, 1/2 of -14 is -7. Combines equal -34. 1/2 of -34 is -17. Combines equal 17. And I already know it's not going to work because 1/2 of 17, well, it is a fraction, but 1/2 of 17 is 8.5, and -8.5 and positive 24, it doesn't equal 0, and that's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to erase, and now I'm going to okay, let's try -1/2 next. So dropping down the 6, I'm writing really lightly so I can erase it. 1/2 of negative, let me go back here. So 1/2 of 6, but remember there's a negative sign. So if you want to think of it as just 6 divided by -2 is -3. Combines equal -20. Taking -20 and divided by -2 is a positive 10. Combines equal -17. So if I take 17 and I divide it in half, and remember 2 negatives divided to give a positive, I get an 8.5. Now when I combine 8.5 and 34, I end up with 42.5. Okay, so then I'm going to take 42.5, and if I divide 42.5 in half, I'm like 21. Okay, now this is a positive, so when I divide it by negative, I get like a -21.21 Again, these are not additive inverses. It means they're not the same number. One's positive and one's negative, and when you combine them, you get 0. So I know -1 doesn't work. Oh, frustrating. So I've tried 1/2, -1/2. I'm going to move on to 3/2 and -3/2 next. This may take me some time to do because remember I'm doing it without the use here of a calculator. So when you drop down the 6, you're like, how am I going to multiply this? You're going to take this value times the top and then divide it by 2. So watch, 6 times 3 is 18, and then 18 divided by 2 is 9. I combine to get -8. 3 times -8 is -24. -24 divided by 2 is -12. Okay, so this brings up 29, -39. Okay, so now I'm going to take 39 times 3. Okay, so 39, that'd be -117, and then I divide it by 2, and this is a -58.5. Okay, we're going to combine that with a 34, so -58.5 combined with 34. This is not looking good. Is 24.5. I'm not thinking this is going to work out. So I'm going to take a -24.5, take it times 3, and then divide it by 2. Okay, take it times 3, and now I'm going to pull up my calculator on my phone. Hold on. Pull up the calculator. Divide by 2. This isn't looking good. -36.75. I don't need to do any more work. It's not equaling 0. And so at this point, I'm really regretting not remembering to bring a graphing calculator home. Although it's great algebraic practice. Let's try a negative and see if we get any further here. All right, bear with me. Here we go. I'm going to drop down the 6. So -3 times 6 is -18 divided by 2 is -9. Okay, so then I take -17 and -9, and I get a -26. Okay, now 2 negatives multiply to give me a positive, so I know this is a positive. I'm going to take 26 times 3 and then divide it by 2. 26 times 3 is 78, divided by 2 is 39. positive 39 and negative 27, they're different signs, subtract, keep the sign of the larger number. Okay, I'm going to take a negative 3. It only is used once, so it's used with the top part. Here's how I'm using it. So negative 3 times positive 12 is negative 36. Negative 36 divided by a positive 2 should be a negative 18. Again, 3 times 12 divided by 2, so we have a negative 18 here. Now 34 and negative 18, they're different signs. I'm going to subtract them and keep the sign of the larger number, which is positive. All right, okay, so I'm going to take a negative 3 times 16, which is negative 48. Ooh, and then take negative 48 divided by 2, I get a negative 24. Finally, I find one of these that works. So I know one solution is negative 3/2. Now hopefully this can help me in finding a secondary solution. So I have 6, negative 26, 12, 16 equals 0. No x, 1x, 2x, and 3x. Okay, is it possible that I can factor by grouping? So I'm looking over here and I can already see it's not going to work, but let me demonstrate why it doesn't work. The most I can factor out here is a 2x squared. I'd be left with 3x minus 13. Well, let's make sure this works. 6x cubed minus 26x squared. But if I put 3x minus 13 over here, in order to achieve a positive 12x, I'd have to multiply by positive 4. And this initial part works. Here's 12x, but 4 times 13, 4 times 13 is not 16. So I can't factor by grouping. So the first thing I did is I identified what is the constant and what is the leading coefficient. Factors of 16 would be 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16. I wrote this in order. And then factors of the leading coefficient, which always go on the denominator, as we use the rational root theorem, would be 1, 2, 3, and 6. Now remember, let's go back over here and talk about what did not work. So all of these did not work. So if I'm crossing them out, I know I never have to test those again because those did not work. The first one that worked for me was a negative 32. I'm going to write these out now. Okay, so I've gone through and I wrote down all of the possible rational roots. And then I get to look up above and I can see, hey, I already tested the ones with this original, with the original equation. And this is a sub-equation of that. Well, I've already tested the original and none of these works. That means if 1 and negative 1 doesn't work up there, it's not working here. And 2 didn't work up above. 4 didn't work up above. 8 didn't work above. Okay, 16 was not up there. I am going to check 16. 1/2 did not work up above. And so this is where I'm going to start. I'm going to start by checking 16. And fingers crossed it works. Because without a calculator, we know that working with fractions is pretty difficult. If 16 do not work, then I'll try the 1/3. I'll try the 2/3. And see where I'm able to find one of those possible roots that does work. I'll be right back with you. This has been a grueling process. So I went ahead and now I took a piece of paper out. I tried 16 and negative 16 and unfortunately they did not work. And so using algebra and working by hand, I have checked each one of these and the first one I got to work was 4/3. So let me demonstrate how I'm able to now select the second. I'm now going to show you how I'm able to get the second one using algebra. Okay, so D Mama, I drop down the 6. Now when I multiply again, I'm going to take the numerator, which is 4, times 6. So 4 times 6 is 24, and then divide it by the denominator. So 24 divided by 6 is, 24 divided by 3, excuse me, 24 divided by 3 is going to be 8. I'm going to combine, they're different signs, so I'm going to combine to get a negative 18. Okay, I'm going to take 4 times negative 18, which is a negative 72, and then I'm going to take that negative 72 and I'm going to divide it by 3 to get a negative 24. Okay, negative 24. Okay, I'm going to combine here to get a negative 12. The same concept, I'm going to take 4 times negative 24, which is negative 48, and then I'll take the negative 48 and divide it by the 3 to come up with a negative 16, and now you can see how I'm able to get 0. And so this did not look painful, but testing each one of these algebraically without a calculator, very painful. What do I do now? Okay, so we have 6x squared minus 18x minus 12 equals 0. And I recognize that I can factor at least a 6 out of each of these. So factoring out a 6, I'm left with 1x squared minus 3x minus 2 equals 0. Let's make sure I did this right. I'm tired. All of that looks great. And then I ask myself, is it factorable? 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Do I know two numbers that multiply to give us negative 2? So they have to be different signs, and then combine to give us a negative 3. And we can see that's not going to work out. Like, in order for me to combine to get a negative 3, it would have to be a negative 2 and a negative 1 to get negative 3. A negative 2 and negative 1, although they may combine to give you negative 3, a negative 2 and negative 1 don't multiply to give you negative 2. I want to just, for those that are visual like me, if I would do negative 2 and negative 1, yes, these would combine to give you negative 3, but they would not multiply to give you a negative 2. It would be a positive 2, which means this isn't factorable. What do I do when it's not factorable? Well, we have learned that when we have a quadratic equation and we can't solve by factoring, we can use the quadratic formula. So x equals negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. 2 negatives gives us a positive. This is 9. Negative 4 times 1 times negative 2 is positive 8 over 2. X equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 17, which cannot be broken down any further. And this is my final answer. So I come up with 4 answers. So let's go over what are my 4 answers. One is a negative 3/2, which we got, over 10 minutes ago. The next one I was able to achieve would be a positive, x equals a positive 4/3. And then the last 2 final roots would be 3 plus or minus the square root of 17, all divided by 2. So one time you add, that'd be the 3rd root, and one time you subtract, that'd be your 4th root.